Dibbler, as always, we appreciate you joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, as we do every weekday starting around 1 p.m. and going throughout the afternoon. And we cover a wide range of topics here. But the topic today is, as it says right there, Sticky the kitty. Now, if you're not familiar with the story of Sticky, you're going to find that out today, because I was joined by Chuck Hawley, who is the owner of Sticky. Brief story here. 2018, this cat was found covered in glue on a road. And Chuck Hawley was the driver who saw this, saved a cat, and then went on to have a pretty amazing career writing children's books based on the story of that and so much more, an inspiration. Now, Sticky did just recently pass away, but Chuck does have a new friend who joins us in this segment. And I wanted to get this out there just to kind of tell the story and about some of the inspiration that this local story, this local cat, this thing that Chuck created out of this and out of the story and friendship with Sticky the kitty that has helped a lot of people. And we're talking about worldwide. I mean, this has taken off all over the place. So here we go. Let's just jump right into it. This is my interview with Chuck. Chuck, thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, for sure.
I'm really excited to talk to you about all of this, but you know, I want to get like the whole story for everybody, or
Right.
at least some understanding for people who may not know. You know, we've got all these books sitting here and everything about Sticky the kitty, and I wondered if you wouldn't mind just telling us just a little bit of that backstory.
Yeah, yeah. Back in 2018, fall of 2018, we had a couple things going on in our house. We had a 120-pound Great Pyrenees who we'd found out that had cancer, and we'd put him through treatments and surgery and found out he wasn't going to make it. He had a buddy who was a little 7-pound Chihuahua. They were the craziest odd couple, but they'd grown up forever. And so we were getting ready to lose Jojo, the big dog. And I was also kind of going through this midlife crisis thing where I just didn't feel like I was living up to my purpose and the kind of things I could do. So this is all going on at the same time. We're looking at the 2 dogs one night, and my wife said, "Do you think we should get another dog to keep the little one company when the big one goes?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "But I kind of want a cat." And she looked at me and said, "Well, don't cats find you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I've never gone out and got a cat. Like, they always just walk up to you and I'm your cat." I'm like, "Okay." And so we kind of forgot about it. And a few days later, I'm driving to work. I worked at the Salvation Army at the time, and I see this little spot on the road, and I didn't really think anything about it. Cars are going over it, and I was looking at my radio trying to find a song to get me into the day, and I glanced up, and the truck in front of me went over Sticky, and he just popped up, and you couldn't miss that it was a kitten. He just looked like the silhouette of a kitten. And so I slammed on the brakes, jumped out of that car. The road had just turned into 2 lanes, so the cars behind me were going to go around, and I was afraid he was going to run out and get hit by the cars going around me. So I stopped the traffic, and I go to pick him up, and as I go to grab him, he looked wet, but it was just this goo and really sticky. The only thing I can describe it as is kind of like that old school rubber cement that you had in school, and just covered in it. And so when I finally go to pick him up, his back feet were stuck on the road. And so I didn't want to hurt his feet, so I peeled the glue up and ran off to the side of the road to kind of look around for other kittens. And as I'm standing there looking for other kittens, this leaf blows across the ground and just covered him. And this guy was so small, he was just completely covered by this leaf. And that's where, okay, you can't stay out here. You're not going to live. Yeah. So I grabbed him and went to work and made a Facebook post. I didn't really know how Facebook worked back then. I was 48, and I really just used it to talk to my kids. And made a Facebook post about what I'd found, and one of my friends asked me to make that public. So I made it public. We took the cat, who my wife at this point, I told him how I'd found him, and she named him Sticky at that point. And so I took him to the vet, and as they were getting the glue off of him, they discovered it was really thick around his neck, and they discovered this cut that was all the way around his neck, and they realized someone had probably tied a fishing wire around him. It was just horrible. Wow. So they're getting the glue off of him, and one of the vet techs comes in and said that, I think it was you guys, I think it was Channel 12 News is on the phone for you, and I'm like, how did they find me? And what do they want? She said, they want to talk to you about the kitten. I'm like, how do they know about the kitten? So they saw your Facebook post. Like, what? Like, okay, so we did this little story, and I thought, well, that's funny, and that's how we got this kitten. That was on a Friday. Over the weekend, that post just kept getting more and more reactions to it, and again, I didn't really know anything about it. I don't know what that means. Yeah. Monday afternoon, I get a call from an Australian phone number, and I'm like, that's weird, and I answer this call, and this guy on the other end It's like, hey, mate, you're the cat guy. You're on live radio, whatever. And I'm like, what is happening? And they have me on this live radio show, and he's asking me about the cat. And I'm just like, what is even going on? So we talked about this for a minute, and the call keeps getting cut off. As soon as I hang up that call, I open Facebook, and my messenger is just flooded with messages. And so I can't, again, I don't even know what's happening, kind of going through these messages. I can't even open them all. And I see this one message that starts off with, "You've given me hope in humanity." So I open that message, and this guy in England tells me that he had been preparing to kill himself. And he had seen this picture of Sticky sitting on my shoulder on his computer screen, stopped what he was doing to find out why this kitten was on my shoulder, and then just didn't go through with it, and said that that picture had given him hope that there's good people out there. I get chills every time I tell that story, but
wow.
And that started it off on, okay, we need to do something with this, if this is making that kind of impact. Over the next week, we kept doing interviews. People kept coming to our house, and someone was setting up the cameras, and I'm talking to the reporter, and I said, I don't know why you guys are here. Like, I'm not getting my head around what's happening. And he looked up and said, "You're giving people hope." And right there was, okay, that's it. This is what we're doing. And so that's kind of how it started, and then
wow.
Yeah, we just kind of went from there.
You're giving people hope. I mean, which is obviously also part of one of these books here. And just to talk about that, you know, you realized this is making such an impact on so many people, just this story of you and Sticky.
Yeah.
And how do you go from there to deciding, you know what, let's write some books?
I had always wanted to write kids' books, and I'd always made up little characters and things like that, but I never really had a way to get them out. And so I'd always wanted to do it, and I saw this helping people. To me, when Sticky sat up, he was really asking for help on that road, and so I thought, well, there's a good story in, you know, for kids to not be afraid to ask for help. And so the reality is I was really writing it for my granddaughters. Like, this would be a cool little thing for them to have. So we wrote it, and then we sent it out. You know, we had a couple orders. About a month later, a psychologist sent me a email telling me that she had tried all these books with her patients to get them to talk after, you know, about their problems.
Yeah.
And none of them worked. And then they read this Sticky situation, and she said, and I can't get them to stop talking. Like, they just won't stop. And I'm like, why do you think that is? And she said, because they feel safe.
Wow.
Okay, so let's do another one. So then we did another one, and while I'm writing these, we have different animals coming to live at our house. People thought we were animal rescuers all of a sudden, and we weren't. I was just going to work and found a cat, or the cat found me, really.
Yeah.
But we had a dog dropped off in our yard. We had just, we started getting all these animals. And so we had 2 originally, and now we have 7. But as they come into the house, I start watching them and realize there's a story in this, because the way they're interacting, the way they have to learn to live with each other.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I have 7 Sticky books now, and none of them are about animals. But kids are the only ones that usually catch on to that. Usually the grown-ups are like, oh, these are animal rescue books. Well, but that's what you're getting out of them. That's awesome, but that's not the plan. But great, as long as it's doing good, that's all we care about. So, yeah, so you have one in there about our dog Sadie, you have one about our cat Daphne. All these animals are really at our house. So
wow.
So that's where that kind of came from.
What do you think it is about those messages that you have in there, you know, going back to that person saying, you know, you gave me hope, and just how many people these books have helped? What is it about this message that helps people so much?
It just resonates with people. I think people understand, you know, not being able to ask for help, and they understand being in those different positions where they're just uncomfortable, and life's just real hard sometimes, and it's easier for us to relate to animals than it is to people sometimes. And so yeah, and you know, and Sticky has passed. Yep, that was rough. Yeah.
I can only imagine for anybody out there who has a pet of any kind, you know, their family.
Yeah,
it's your family member.
Yeah.
I've certainly gone through it. I don't even want to go down that road too much. So, but it's part of the deal, I guess.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You know, 2 months ago, I wouldn't have understood it. I would have known you were hurting, and I would have been able to feel that with you.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have quite gotten it.
Yeah.
And I get it now. Like, you're losing, you know, a friend, a family member, and a pet. And I've lost all of those things, but I've never lost one that was wrapped up in one awesome little furry package that was just my buddy. And so I never thought of him as a cat, which is weird, but I never thought of him as a cat. one of the best lessons that I learned from Sticky right away is that everybody is so much more alike than we think we are. Like, I'm sitting there thinking I'm the only one with this story, but I know you have that story. And I'm in a grocery store and strangers are crying with me about my cat, and they leave, and I look around this grocery store and I know there's 5 other people in here that are feeling the same way I do about that's their buddy. And but no one's coming up to them, hugging them. And so that's been, this cat has just taught me lessons from the moment I met him, and still teaching me lessons. So it's just really hard, and I don't think people put enough stock into that, how hard that is, especially if you don't know. But man, it's rough. It's brutal.
It's very rough. And you know, I know there's another. Well, we had another guest who was out here just a minute ago. We need to bring our other guest over here. But you know, you're going through that, and you decided to go down to the Humane Society.
I did, and it was completely by accident. I was at work in Portland. This is a few days after Sticky passed away, and I was just a mess. I couldn't be around people, and so I'm just going to go for a drive. And so I'm way out on Columbia Boulevard. I'm literally almost 60 miles away from my house, and I see the sign for the Humane Society. I'm like, how ironic is that? But all right. And then I kind of thought, well, go look at some kittens. You'll feel better. So I go in there. I ask the girl at the front counter, you know, I just want to go look at some kittens. She said, well, there's none available. I'm like, you have no cats available at the Humane Society? She said, there's a busy morning. So, awesome, good for you guys. So I turned to leave, and she tells me, well, you can go look. And I don't really want to go look if I'm, you know, I had my hand on the door to leave. I'm like, no, just go look. Okay, so I go back into this cat room, and I walked in, and there's all these cages covered with this blue tarp, and then there's one that you can see in the middle, and it was a kitten that looked just like Sticky, and that's the guy I should have wanted, and I just didn't feel that thing for him. All I felt was, you are so cute, I hope you have the best life, and I'm gonna go. And I turned around to walk out, and this little paw sticks out from behind the blue curtain and taps my arm. And I look at this paw, and it's still sitting there. I'm like, what is that? And it looks like Sticky's paw. And I open this thing. This dude looked just like Sticky, the way he was sitting, and I thought he was a full-grown cat. And that's my guy. And then he looked at me, and he didn't look like Sticky, but for whatever reason, that little connection got me. So I went and talked to them about, you know, what's going on with that guy. He wasn't available. I made a post.
Bring that guy over here too.
I made a post on our Facebook, and within 3 minutes, I had 700 people telling me that this is your dude. And so I went back and talked to him about it. And lucky enough, I ended up getting this guy, and this is Allan, and just the sweetest guy you could ever come across. Just wants everybody smiling. And
I will tell you, I have already been fortunate enough to pet Allan, and he is very sweet and very fluffy. And so, you know, for whatever reason, Allan reached out, touched you, and you knew.
I knew right then. That was it. That was my guy. And I had no intention of bringing anybody else home. I didn't think I could do that yet. And I think that's kind of one of the biggest lessons at the end of this whole thing is that, you know, just go down there, and if you're in that spot and you don't think you can love another one right now, just go visit and let them find you, because the guy I saw, that should have been the one I wanted, but the guy that found me was this one, and I couldn't have gotten through all this without him. It's the craziest thing. And I wouldn't have understood that 2 months ago either. I'd see people on a plane with, you know, their support animal, and I'm like, well, all right, good for you. Oh, I get it now.
Now you get it.
I get it.
Yeah. So for everybody out there, maybe just, if you don't understand, just realize that, you know, this is somebody's family.
It is family, yeah. And, you know, I have a beautiful support system. I have family and kids and all that. There's a lot of people that don't have that, and that's their family right there. And so
there he goes.
And I know a lot of people don't understand that, but we need to have a little more empathy for that, for sure.
Well, Chuck, thank you, you know, for being in here and sharing your story.
Absolutely.
I think, final question, are we going to be expecting an Allan book at some point?
I think so. I think Allan's going to slide right in there, and I can't stop these books now at this point. I've had thousands of people telling me that we have to keep going with this. And
you have to.
Yeah, and all right, we're going to keep Sticky going, and Allan will be the new guy, and
all from Sticky popping his head up there on the
that grumpy little booger. Just the grumpiest guy you could ever meet, but man, that guy changed a lot of people's lives. So it was really cool being his sidekick, for sure.
Yeah, well, I think you had a little bit of role in that too, but you know.
It's been one of the hardest things for me to get my head around. Everybody's trying to tell me, you did that. I couldn't have done it without him.
Wow. It's the dynamic duo that helped, and Now you got Allan and you got everything else.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Well, Chuck, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity to tell his story. So thank you, brother.
Absolutely. Once again, a huge thank you to Chuck for coming in, and a really great story there of just how that all worked out and how many people have been helped out from that. So thanks to him and everyone for sharing that and getting that out there. And also, thank you for watching Fox 12 Now. We're live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. I was in a different studio for that recording, but we're here at the station. Sometimes we go outside, but we cover a wide range of topics here on the show, so feel free to share those. You can go to kptv.com under the Fox 12 Now tab or on the Fox 12 Oregon apps, which are available on pretty much everything. So just go to your store, you'll find it, and download that, and that way you can check these out, both live and after the fact as well. So thanks everybody for joining us. I appreciate your time. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.